Hello everyone, this is Cynthia Thinnes and welcome to my channel. Today I would like to talk about the great conjunction that will be happening at the solstice and the popular reference to this as the Christmas star, and whether or not there's any basis for thinking of this conjunction in this way. Now, as I talked about in a previous video, Jupiter and Saturn will be conjunct at the solstice, and this is something that happens once every 20 years or so. At this particular conjunction, they will be close enough to be seen as a single star. Now, what does this mean and how does this happen? Most of the time, when Jupiter and Saturn are conjunct, we're only considering their longitude, where they are on the east and west axis. But there's another axis as well, which is the north and south axis. At the solstice, Jupiter and Saturn will be together both on the east-west axis and the north and south axis, which is why they'll be so close that you could potentially see them as one single planet or star. This is much rarer than the actual Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. The last time that this happened was about 800 years ago. Now, because of this, people have been referring to this as the Christmas star, especially since it will be happening around the time of Christmas at the winter solstice in the northern hemisphere. When most people think about the Christmas star, what they're thinking about is what is also known as the Star of Bethlehem. This is recorded in the Christian Gospel of Matthew. Right after the story about the birth of Jesus, in chapter 2 of Matthew, it reads, "In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, asking, 'Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we have observed his star at its rising and have come to pay him homage.'" This reference has captured the imagination of astrologers and astronomers for about 2,000 years. And they have been looking for and speculating about the star for that entire time. Now, if we are going to be looking for that star, first we need to assume that this story is historically accurate, and that's a big assumption. From an essentialist perspective, historical accuracy is the least important consideration when it comes to stories and to what is considered to be scriptures. Miss Alice Lucy Trent, who is the author of The Feminine Universe, said, "History depicts events that may or may not have happened, while myth depicts, in terms of events, things that cannot not be." From the modern perspective, it is often seen that myth is somehow less true and less real than history. But from the essentialist perspective, myth is actually more true than history. Historical accuracy is not the question. And in fact, what we would say is, well, it might be historically accurate or not, but does the story rise to the level of a myth? Does it speak to truth with a capital T? And now there's an intermediate level between history and myth, which is legend. These are stories that may or may not have some historical accuracy or implications, but they also speak to larger metaphysical truths. To me, that seems to be where the Christmas story and the story of the Star of Bethlehem lie. Somewhere between historical fact and fundamental truths, and it is in the category of legend. So, in that regard, the historical accuracy is the least important part of the story. But even so, it is still fun and interesting to speculate as to what, if there was such a star, and what that star might have been. Astronomers will speak about visible phenomena that could be seen in the sky. Astrologers will talk about the charts and the astrological meanings of what was seen in the sky and where the planets were and what that might mean. But if such an event did occur, it was probably both. There was probably something astronomical. There was also a meaning that was attached to it in astrology. At that time, astronomy, astrology, and cosmology were all one discipline. It wasn't separated the way it is today. Some modern astronomers will say that, oh, there was an important conjunction, such as between Jupiter and Saturn. Some have said Jupiter and Venus, that they mistook for a star. That proposition is absurd. And it shows the modern bias against ancient ideas and technology. They were much more sophisticated than that. Astronomers, astrologers track the night sky, track the planets. They would know if something was a conjunction versus a star. They would not have mistaken any conjunction, no matter how close or how bright it was, for something new that would be seen in the sky. Now, that being said, there was a great conjunction in 7 BC. And indeed, it was a triple great conjunction. These happen from time to time because planets as seen from the Earth sometimes appear to go retrograde or backwards. And when this happens, you may see an event 3 times. The first time is going forward, the second time when one or more planets are going backward, and then the third time when they're going forward again. In 7 BC, the conjunction was on May 27th, and then again on September 29th, and the third and final time was December 3rd. This would have been big and important, and it happened in the sign of Pisces. In recent history, this happened in between 1940 and 1941, and this happened in Taurus, and it happened again in 1980 and 1981, in which the triple conjunction happened in Libra. Now, just like I talked about in the previous videos on the Great Conjunction, there was an elemental shift at this time. And this was a shift between water and fire. But it wasn't a clean shift. It went back and forth between water and fire for a while. On June 27th, 26 BC, the Great Conjunction happened in Leo, which is a fire sign. And then the next one, which happened on December 24th, 14 AD, happened in Sagittarius. And then there was one more that happened in Pisces, which was March 24th, 54 AD. The conjunctions did not happen in fire for good until October 27th, 74 AD, and that happened in Sagittarius. At about the time of the birth of Jesus, this was also about the beginning of what was considered to be and is considered to be the age of Pisces. And it's interesting because the symbol of the fish, which is the symbol for Pisces, has been or was selected or was used to symbolize Christianity. So this was definitely and a very important great conjunction from an astrological perspective. But it did not appear close enough to look like one star at that time. While the conjunction happened and the east-west axis, the planets were a full degree apart when it comes to north and south. So this is not the same thing that we will be seeing on the night of the solstice. But I do think it's related to the Star of Bethlehem, and here's why. 2 years after the Great Conjunction, there was a supernova that was recorded in Chinese lore. Now, in Chinese lore, it was described as a comet or a broom star, but chances are this was actually a supernova. It was in the sky for 70 days. The ancient Chinese had detailed records of such phenomenon. And it was visible in the spring, and it would have been visible in Persia and also in Judea, where Jesus is reported to be born. So, could this be the Star of Bethlehem? I think that it's a good contender. Now, of course, if this was a supernova that was seen in the sky, it would not have traveled to where the manger where Jesus was laying. But actually, that is not how the story is recorded in the gospel. The reason that the Magi knew that it was going to be, the birth was going to be in Bethlehem, was because of the prophecy that was recorded in Jewish scripture, not because the star itself had led them to it. They had gone to see King Herod, which turned out to be a mistake, but when King Herod asked them where the king would be born, they said Bethlehem, and the reason they said that was because scripture said, "And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means the least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel." So there's no requirement that this Christmas star would have actually moved to show the wise men where Jesus would be born. If nothing else, a supernova, a new star appearing in the sky, would certainly have been seen as an omen. Indian astrology to this day considers things like comets, supernovas, and other things that happen in the sky as omens. Even if the supernova was indeed what was recorded as the Star of Bethlehem, the Great Conjunction still played a role, I think. And this comes through later in the story. As I said earlier, it was a mistake for the wise men to go see King Herod. In the story, he was afraid that somebody would be challenging his reign. And the gruesome part of this is that after the visit of the wise men, he made the decision to have all children who were born in Bethlehem under the age of 2 years old slaughtered, which is called the slaughter of the innocents. While this is a difficult story, what's interesting is the time frame of 2 years. Why is this interesting is that 2 years would have been the time between the Great Conjunction in 7 BC and the appearance of the supernova in 5 BC. Now, great conjunctions are seen as generational influences, and they would have been seen as generational influences. It's very probable that that star meant that the special child had already been born, and that child would have had to have been born within 2 years after the Great Conjunction that happened in 7 BC. Now, this is very speculative, of course, but as an astrologer, I see this as certainly quite plausible. Thank you so much for watching my video. If you liked it, please press the like button. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to use the comments section. If you would like notification of future videos, please subscribe and ring the bell. Thank you so much. Merry Christmas, Happy Solstice, Good Yule, Happy Nativity, Happy Holidays. Goodbye for now.